Welcome to SUSD Spotlight, your go-to source for all things happening within the district. Whether it's celebrating student and staff achievements, delving into trending education topics, or highlighting inspiring human interest stories, we've got you covered. Join us as we illuminate the incredible endeavors taking place in our schools and forge connections within our community. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and engaged as we embark on this journey together, spotlighting the extraordinary in SUSD. Welcome to another episode of SUSD Spotlight. Today we're excited to welcome in studio our Director of Security, Josh Friedman, and our Supervisor of Security, Chuck Cochran. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We have a lot of questions today, but I want to start with Mr. Friedman. You've had an interesting career in law enforcement, but you are also an SUSD legacy. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey from SUSD all the way to where you are now as our Director of Security.
Well, thanks. I graduated from Saguaro High School back in early 90s. And from there, I went to the University of Arizona to study athletic training because when I was at Saguaro, I opened the first athletic training facility in the district and helped get the Health South at the time to do sports medicine in the district. So I was part of that first initial class. And then went to University of Arizona, decided to change my major, and went to Northern Arizona University and finished up there with a criminal justice degree, and left there and worked at the Grand Canyon for 3 years as a firefighter, doing wildland firefighting. And during the school year, I worked for the Flagstaff Fire Department as a firefighter, came down to the valley and started working for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and I worked there for 12 years doing everything from patrol to detectives to all kinds of things, and ended up being a detective there, and then became a arson detective, and left there after about 12 years and went to the town of Gilbert and worked in Gilbert for years doing arson detective, fire investigator, eventually became the fire marshal, and then due to an injury and I had to come out of the field, I became an emergency manager and went and got certified as an emergency manager. And once I finished that, I was looking for a job to come back home and came back to Scottsdale. Was lucky to get hired in my current role as a Director of Safety and Security, and unlike my predecessor, who I've known for years and years, he was a law enforcement officer. I am not only a sworn law enforcement officer, but also a certified firefighter, a fire marshal, and emergency manager. So I brought the full breadth of all the emergency services to the district when I came.
That's a tremendous background. And Chuck, tell us about your trajectory that led you to Scottsdale Unified School District and the role you play in our security team.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. So my career actually started in higher education. While I was in high school, I started at the American Graduate School of International Management. By 19, I became the security program supervisor for them. Then at 23, became the director of security for that institution. My career path kind of changed a little bit during that time frame. Attended school at Glendale Community College for fire science. Started pursuing a degree in EMS. Ended up being working on an ambulance company locally for about 6 years while I maintained the role as the Director of Security at the graduate school. Spent 17 years there at my first job. Never left, stayed there at the school, and then took a role as the Director of Security for the Wigwam Resort out in Litchfield Park. So I kind of changed roles from the school setting to resort and hospitality. Spent a few years doing that, worked some other often part-time jobs through loss prevention, retail security, things of that nature. And then found an opening here in Scottsdale 12 years ago. And as Josh alluded to earlier, his predecessor, James Dorr, interviewed me 12 years ago, and I've been here ever since. Absolutely love my time here in Scottsdale. It's been a great path for me. And actually, this January will be 34 years in the security industry.
That's impressive. So school security is extraordinarily important, but I'm not sure that everyone understands all of the various components and what you oversee. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what happens day in and day out with our security team, how many people work on your teams across our 29 campuses and various facilities.
So we have about 40 security guards. Every high school and middle school has permanent security guards on the campuses, and then our elementary campuses have guards that rotate through at least every third day, sometimes more, just depending on what's going on. But that they are our frontline boots on the ground. They are there to get to know the students, to greet the parents when they come in. They are there to help with classrooms, with monitoring the day-to-day activities and all the things that go on. In addition to that, our department is also responsible for ensuring that all the students have ID badges. We're responsible for making sure all the staff have ID badges. So we deal with the ID badges. We deal with the visitor volunteer management system that is newly rolled out. We're responsible for the radio system that the district uses to communicate across all the campuses. We continually add to our breadth of things that our department is responsible for. But on the flip side of things, the other thing that we're responsible for is meeting all the state guidelines for emergency management. And that includes making sure that we have emergency operations plans for all the campuses that actually meet the state guidelines and the federal guidelines. We have to make sure the drills that are required by law and policy are done, whether it's an evacuation drill, which used to be called a fire drill, whether it's shelter in place or lockdown. We oversee all of those to make sure that those are done on a regular basis. And then we have to make sure that we communicate regularly with all of our partner agencies, whether it's the 3 police departments, Scottsdale, Phoenix, and Paradise Valley, or the fire departments, Phoenix and Scottsdale, as well as all the emergency managers. And because, especially this year, with the threats that have been on social media and the hoaxes that have come through, that we have to communicate with all the state agencies, the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center and the federal agencies, and just trying to work through all of that as a regular basis. So pretty much everything turns into safety and security at some point.
Well, I can tell you from my seat as a parent and as the director of communications, I'm so grateful for your team and all of the resources that we have deployed all across the district to maintain the safety and security of our students, staff, and of course our schools. But additionally, so grateful for the partnerships that we have with our local law enforcement agencies.
We've talked a lot about the importance of the partnership with our local law enforcement. That includes school resource officers. Can you talk about the role they play on our campuses?
Yeah, so we have school resource officers from both Scottsdale Police Department and Phoenix Police Department, depending on where the jurisdiction of our schools are. And we have a school resource officer assigned to every one of our high schools and every one of our middle schools. And they also cover our elementary schools. And this year, we were fortunate to get the SSO, which is a little bit different because they're not there permanently on our campus, but they're funded through ADE as part of the grant that they came out with last year. And they are officers that are at 2 of our elementary schools. And the SROs are there to be part of the community. They are part of the school community. They talk to kids about how their day is going, what's going on campus, and then they also are there to assist with law enforcement related activities. They teach kids about when riding bikes are supposed to happen, e-bikes in the streets, what the regulations are. So they talk about the criminal stuff, but they're also there to talk about the daily stuff. And then the most important thing that our SROs do is they're there to assist the staff in the event of an emergency or the event of a weapon or something on campus. They are there immediately to put the threat in perspective and deal with whatever comes their way.
They're also building relationships with students day in and day out, and they've got, some of them anyway, have crisis canines.
That's correct. We have crisis canines at 3 of our high schools, 3 of our learning complexes. 1 is at a middle school, 2 are at high schools, and we're looking to expand that to all 5 learning communities here in the next few years. But their crisis canines are there to encourage the students who may have had negative interactions with law enforcement prior, whether it's through their home life or other things, to give them a sense of it's okay to come up and talk to the police officer, and it's okay to pet the dog, and to experience the benefits of talking to an adult who is an officer, and hopefully change some of their outlooks on how police officers are part of the community and not just there when things go bad, but that they're actually a resource and somebody that you can talk to.
and the continued opportunities for us to grow professionally with ICS training. I know, again, because of the number of incidents that we've had this year, thankfully, all non-credible threats, but nonetheless, opportunities to work with so many agencies. Can you really talk about what that ICS training is? Because I have seen it really come in handy this year in how each of us approaches our role.
Yeah, thank you. So the state requires that anybody that's an incident commander, and ICS stands for the Incident Command System, and it's FEMA mandated. It's a national program that everybody from school districts to large businesses to public safety use, and it's a way for everybody to talk the same language and integrate together. So when police or fire come on our campus and they use terminology or need assistance, we're all speaking the same language. And as a district, we have, for years before I even got here, emphasize that all of our principals and site administrators need to have the training. And one of the things that we've done in the last couple of years is we've worked to develop that class and change the way that we respond from a case where everybody at district goes to the campus to deal with the incident to let's sit back and send somebody to be our liaison and let the campus do what the campus needs to do, and then we support them from a district point of view. And what that does is a couple things. One is it allows us to get the bigger picture because we have lots of families that have children at multiple schools. So in the case of an incident at a single school, it may impact more than one school. And if we're all focused and standing at the school that has the main incident, we're not able to look at the big picture. So by stepping back and having a separate emergency operations center where we can go and make decisions for the district, it allows us to keep that big picture, and we bring our partner agencies. So when we activate our operations center, the police department and fire department send people here to help us with communication, with decisions, and we're really working on trying to continue to grow the trained people within our district staff to make it even easier as we move forward.
Chuck, you said you've been here 12 years. How have things changed in the security world since you started until now?
So, wow, that's a great question. Honestly, there's been a lot of changes in the security field. I tell our staff constantly, data security is different day to day. There's new threats that evolve. There's changes to policies and procedures. There's new ideologies that come out when it comes to security overall. Mm-hmm. Part of my role in developing the operation plans for the campus is just what you just addressed right there, is when we see something that's changed, we have to evaluate, reevaluate, see if we can make changes to make ultimately the campus a safer place to be. And that's a daily thing. It's not something that's done once a year, twice a year. It's a daily look at how things are operated, and if we have to make those changes, we do. So security is ever evolving. It's never a dull moment. There's always something for us to look at and reevaluate.
And it's such a shared responsibility. We talk a lot about how everyone plays a vital role in keeping our community, our schools safe. And as such, during your tenure here in the last couple of years, we rolled out a campaign, Dig It. Can you sort of tell us the genesis of that, what it means, and how it still has value today, every day?
I think I'd been here about 2 days when I was asked, hey, what are we doing to roll out security for this year? And at the time, not knowing a whole lot about budget or anything else that I had to come up with something that did not have a huge financial impact because I didn't know what my budget was or anything else, but also made sense. And when we talk about Dig It stands for doors being locked, IDs being worn, gates being closed, and then IT passwords not being shared. Those were really simple things that probably should have been going on for many years, and in a lot of cases in the district there were, but it was never highlighted. And so the Dig It campaign really just brought to the forefront our ability to say, hey, these are important to us. And like I said, doors, the classroom door is the last line of defense, but it's also all the other doors that are on the campus, whether it's the gymnasium door, the back door to the cafeteria. There's all kinds of doors that we're talking about, even the front office door. So it's making sure doors are locked and secured and that they function properly. The IDs, everybody should have an ID. We've upgraded the IDs for the students. We're doing new IDs for the staff. And making sure that the ID is visible and that it's a tool, not a vanity statement. It doesn't have to match your outfit. It's a tool that should be worn by everybody so that we can identify who's supposed to be on our campus and who's not. lot. And then the gates, we have a lot of people that get onto our campuses for all kinds of events. They're supposed to be there, but then during the school day, those gates are supposed to be closed and locked. And if they're open, there should be somebody near there, a staff member or a security guard, to be able to make sure that the people coming through are supposed to be on the campus. And finally, IT, with all of the opportunities that people have to not just do harm or create hoaxes on social media and so forth. It's sharing your IT password with somebody whose parents may not want them to have social media, but they now know your password to your phone and create an account on your phone for them. And we've seen that time and time again, which is a way that kids are getting around what their parents' wishes truly are. So it's a partnership with us and the parents and the students to say, keep your doors closed, wear your ID, keep the gates monitored when they're open, and don't share your password.
It's really simple and important, and everyone needs to play their part. You've often said that security, in order to have it properly on our campuses, requires a little bit of inconvenience. It shouldn't be easy for someone to get on our campuses, and yet we want to create safe, warm, and nurturing environments. There are other things that we have in place. We have cameras on our campuses that help us manage situations. How does security use those devices to enhance the opportunity to ensure our students are safe?
So we currently have over 1,600 cameras across our district and add more every year. In the hundreds of cameras every year to the district. And these cameras are used proactively to monitor fences, gates, doors, things like that, the hallways, and with the more and more ability of AI to monitor things for us, it's been pretty amazing. It learns that people walk down a hallway, on the right side, and they keep going back and forth. And then if there's a mass, a mob, as they call it, where people stop and people congregate, it can now alert us. So those are things that we're moving into. We don't have it on all the campuses yet, but we're working towards that. But we have that ability. And then during an incident, it's great because I don't have to send everybody into the area wherever that incident occurs. If it's a fight on a campus, we can watch from remote locations and help the administration on the campus to be able to see what's going on where they need to be. We're also very lucky that we have an agreement with our police department, and their real-time crime center, which is staffed 24 hours a day, has the ability to pull up all of our campus cameras at any point in time whenever there is an incident on a campus, that when we get a call that says there's a bad person with a weapon out in front of the school, they can pull up our cameras and see that there's not a bad person standing out in front of our school. That doesn't mean that they don't send officers there to do a physical check, but it means that they're not seeing what is coming through directly on the threat or the call or whatever it is. So that is just a huge ability for us to partner with the police department and hopefully give them more tools and resources. We did a drill about 2 years ago where we planned for the scenario. It was an active shooter scenario, and we planned for the scenario to last about 2 hours. The scenario lasted 12 and a half minutes because the real-time crime center was able to see where the bad guys were, direct the officers, and get them to where they needed to be. And all of those people knew nothing about the scenario other than that it was going to happen. So it's a real benefit. And then the last thing that we use our cameras for is just really the after-the-fact investigations into the fights, the he said, she said, the what actually happened. And fortunately, overall, our students are good. And so when we're looking for stuff, we're looking for the little things that somebody pushed somebody or how did this happen or things like that. And the cameras really come in handy to dispel the he said, she said, or the little minute things that happen.
So social media creates an opportunity for people to disrupt what's happening on our campuses. You mentioned earlier the hoaxes that we've seen. We've seen social media, and I'll put air quotes here, threats that sometimes are more specific than others. Sometimes they include a lot of different schools named. How do you as a security team respond to those types of situations? And what advice do you have for parents who are hearing about this and have concerns?
We respond to every hoax, threat, email, chat as the same. The initial thing is to evaluate what it is and get it to the appropriate police agency that we work with so that they can start their investigation into it. obviously, if it's during the day and it's a student that makes it, or we can identify the student, it's a lot easier to, because we have everybody contained in the school, and it's easier to go talk to Johnny in class or Susie who's 2 doors down or whatever that is. But if we get something that comes in after hours, we contact our local law enforcement, and we work with them till the wee hours of the morning sometimes, or overnight, until we actually get to a point where we can either say that this is non-credible or a hoax or whatever. There's various terms that we use depending on what it is. But we work every threat, every hoax, every social media post, every email, every chat, all the way to the origin and to ground where we have nowhere else to go. And what I mean by that is sometimes it comes overseas. And when it comes from overseas, we have to stop, and the FBI and the federal agencies get involved. But at that point, our local law enforcement can tell us this is not a credible threat and it came in from somewhere else. So that's huge for us. But I would say the biggest thing that parents can do is report it and not repost it. And a lot of parents are like, well, I can tell my friends and everything else. And yes, you can tell your friends, but you have to realize every time that post is shared, it goes out to somebody else. And that person shares with another person. And for us, when we get it reported, we have to go back through every one of those people to find the original post, to get the metadata, which is behind the post, to be able to track it back to the IP address. And the more people that have shared it, even if it's just, as a parent in the district, somebody else sent it to me. Well, now we're going to track it back to you and to the people that you sent it to, because we never know where it's coming from. And so that can go from a literally 30-minute investigation, because it's 5 kids that shared it directly with the police and the administrator, to hundreds of kids, and it can take us hours to track it back. And that's why some of these, when parents say, how come you haven't told us the result? Well, we may still be tracking it back and know that it's not a hoax, or know that it's not a real credible threat, because we've been working on it for 2 days and the threat was 2 days ago, but we're still working to find out who did the original post.
What are the consequences for social media posts that are threatening, even if they're not credible or actionable?
So the person that actually makes the post can be charged with domestic terrorism. They can be charged with threatening and harassing. There's about 8 different statutes, and most of them are felonies that they can be charged with. The other thing that they've been doing is civilly going after families for the cost of the investigation, which in some cases can be thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's the criminal side of things. On the school side, it can lead to expulsion if it's that bad. But the biggest thing is, we all go to school. All these children that go to school, the biggest thing is the notoriety that the child gets, and the challenges that child will now have if they do come back to school, because not every child gets expelled. If somebody makes a mistake, it doesn't mean that they're going to be expelled, but this child now has to live with that and go to school and get the peer pressure and the ribbing from everybody, and it's not always in a positive fashion.
In some cases, we have lockdowns. In other cases, maybe a shelter in place. In some cases, nothing has changed at all on a campus. Why is it important for parents not to come to a campus when we have a lockdown?
That's a great question as well. The importance to that is we have law enforcement partners who are responding to the scene to potentially eliminate a threat or to address the threat that is currently being broadcasted. When we have the additional influx of parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents, it just creates a traffic jam at the location where that incident is occurring. When those valuable resources are trying to get in to protect those loved ones in those school environments, it creates a huge problem, not only for responders coming in, but if there was truly an emergency on the site, now we're trying to play traffic control to get those emergency vehicles into the site as well. The more people you get on an incident scene, the more chaotic it becomes. And we're trying to control the chaos, not add to it.
What I've found, especially with the number of sort of incoming hoaxes and pseudo threats, if you will, in the recent days, is the major disruption that this is causing to learning, and then the additional stress or anxiety it may be causing amongst parents, our teachers, and our community members. So we've tried really hard, I think, to break down what the difference is between a lockdown and a shelter in place, and to share as much as we can when we can. But can you help our community understand the different levels of response that and the different ways that our schools will engage their students and their staff, whether it be a lockdown, whether it be a shelter in place, and then maybe how community members can manage their vigilance with the onslaught of posts that we've seen?
Yeah, so we have three major types of drills or activations that occur. The top of the pyramid, I'll call it, is the lockdown. And during a lockdown, that it's just what it says. You lock the doors, you lock the campus, nobody moves, lights go out, and people are quiet, basically huddled in the corner of a classroom, a closet, or other designated area beforehand. And this can be very traumatic. And when we do this is for a specific reason. This is that there is something on campus actively happening, or that we believe is actively happening. That could be a shooter, that could be a person that looked like they were carrying a gun that shouldn't be on campus. That could be any number of things. But that is the ultimate, where people just huddle in the corner and wait for direction. The second one is shelter in place. And shelter in place is where the doors are still locked and we don't let students or teachers or anything go from point to point. They don't move about. They stay within the classroom, but they can continue teaching and learning in the classroom. Things kind of go back to normal. We want them to learn and teach and things like that, but we don't want them going out of the classroom or out of the building. And this can be for any number of things. After a lockdown, it could be to help with the police investigation, where they're still trying to figure out and make sure they have all the details done. It could be for something as simple as a mountain lion or other wild animal that's on our campus. And then the other thing that we use this for is when we have medical emergencies on campus. And if somebody is sick or hurt or any type of injury, we may go into shelter in place so that the fire department can wheel the person out without everybody looking at them as they're being brought through campus. So shelter in place happens a lot more than a lockdown, because shelter in place can be used for any number of things. And then the last thing we have is an evacuation. And this is what we growing up would have called a fire drill. And this is where you take everybody out of the building and you put them on a field. It used to be where we had several types of evacuations. You go to the field and then you could walk to a local church or the Boys and Girls Club to evacuate to another location. But because of the time and things that occur in today's society, we have changed that, where people evacuate and then we will put them on a bus and take them to another location. So that's why oftentimes when parents, if we go into a lockdown and we tell you that we're going to reunify you, we don't say come to the school, because we won't do that any longer. We won't go to the church that's next door, right down the street. We're going to take the students to another location, and we have numerous locations. We've partnered with the city to have other facilities, not just our schools, because that gives us the ability to say, okay, we're going to bring you here and coordinate the release, because every child that's there is our responsibility. And so we have to ensure that student A goes home with the right parent, and that the parent is authorized to actually pick up the student. So it's a process, and we have that process set up. So we no longer walk down the street. We now put kids on buses and take them places, which is also why the new IDs have the ability to know which student gets on which bus, because then I can easily match them with the parent when they get to this reunification. So.
And how do you suggest that we balance sort of the need to be vigilant, but then also, like I said, the onslaught of posts that can be concerning, and not wanting to just, become desensitized to this. We treat it all like it's the real deal, but that heightened awareness can sometimes be a lot for people.
We have parents on both sides. We have parents that are at the point where they're like, oh, it's just another email, and I'm sending my kid to school, and it is what it is. And we don't want to get to that point either, because when they get something, when you see something, say something, don't repost it, report it. We need them to do that, and not it's just another thing, I'll deal with it. But on the other side, we have a lot of parents that are scared to send their children to school. Some of them are kindergartners, first-time parents that are letting their child out into the world without them on a regular basis. And what I would say is ask your questions. We have numerous ways throughout the district where you can get in touch with anyone from the administration on the campus to the superintendent to the security department. Ask your questions. Let us tell you the truth about what's going on. Don't listen to the rumors. Don't listen to what your friends are saying. Ask us the questions, get the answers so that you can feel comfortable about what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is to make your child safer. And we can't tell you that your child is 100% safe, because that's not realistic, and anybody that tells you that is lying to you. But I can tell you that we're doing everything we can within our means to make sure that when your child comes to school, they have a safe experience, a great day learning, having fun, being with their kids, and then they come home to you at the end of the day. And if things happen like we have now with lockdowns and shelter in place and the threats, hoaxes that keep coming in, we'll do everything that we can to ensure that you have the information to make an informed decision and to know what's going on. So if we're moving your child to another school for whatever reason, or if we have to take your child somewhere, or if they're locked down in the classroom, that you know that, and you know that your child is safe.
Also, I know we talked about Dig It, but also new this year we rolled out Keeping It Real. And REAL standing for research, evaluate, analyze, lead, all the different ways that you can engage with any kind of media component, social media, whether you're doing a Google search or anything else, but to really think about that which you're consuming and whether or not it's credible before you share it. Is that another component, another campaign that can really assist, I suppose, in this messaging that we want parents and students and teachers and community members to hear?
Everybody has to keep it real. And that is not only about what we're talking about here, but it's everything. It's when we are having the conversation with our friends after school, when you're standing outside waiting for your child to come out of school, or you're dropping them off and the parents gather and they're waiting to say goodbye before the kid goes in. You have to evaluate the information, and we want every one of the parents to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. If you hear something and you don't think it's right, or if you hear something and you're like, that doesn't sound right, ask, get the facts. Stop spreading or believing the rumors and the lies. Every person at the district will give you the truth and the answer that you need to know. And you may not like the answer, or we may not be able to give you exactly what you want to hear, because there's things like FERPA and HIPAA and all kinds of rules that we have to follow about what we can release. But the bottom line is keeping it real and understanding the statements that are made and how you propagate them going forward really makes a difference.
The work you do on our security team is extraordinarily important, and I want to say thank you. I don't know when you sleep as a security team, because I think you're on call 24/7, and it's absolutely essential to ensure that our students have a very safe place to come to school to learn and grow and develop their full potential. So thank you on behalf of the 21,000 students we serve. At the end of every podcast, I like to ask my guest to think about a teacher or someone in a school system who's made a difference in your life. We like to elevate excellence in Scottsdale Unified, and I'd like to invite you to share a memory of someone who's made a difference in terms of your career trajectory or the person you've become today.
Yeah, I actually have a high school football coach who was very instrumental in my development. Larry Feckenheier, his Cactus Cobra class of 90. So he was a great coach, great inspiration, not only to me, but our entire football team. Really inspired us to do more and work as a team. And honestly, SUSD, team environment, the security department, team 100%. We work as a team, we excel as a team, we grow as a team.
That's a powerful testimonial. Thank you. Josh?
I would say my career teacher at Saguaro High School, Rosie Pollock. She was an amazing woman who, when I got to Saguaro, I don't think I had my head screwed on necessarily straight, and she sat me down and had some great conversations with me to show me how much of a difference a single person can make if they actually put their energy into doing things positive instead of negative, and trying to move in the right direction. And I've kind of kept her in the back of my head all these years. And now that I'm back and in the district, it's funny to go by where her office was and see and remember all the conversations that I had in there that got me to where I am today.
Thank you both for sharing those, and thank you for sharing your insights and sharing with our public about the important work that our security team does here. We encourage you to tune in anytime it fits in your schedule to future episodes of SUSD Spotlight, where we highlight the amazing things happening in our school district.
And we hope that you will reach out and pitch us more ideas for future episodes on our website, susd.org/spotlight.